Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. An Algorand video for you guys today, ALGO on the exchange. An interesting project, this one, interesting company. I was fortunate to meet most of their team earlier this year for AMAs and things like that at Paris Blockchain Week. Really exciting, advanced technology in the blockchain space. We've done multiple videos with on Algorand in the past. As a holder, I haven't actually been holding Algorand for a long time at all. We'll go into that in a bit more detail. But I've always done videos of Algorand, even if I haven't held them. I just think they're a really big top player in the blockchain space, been around for a while now. And to be honest, they do coordinate a lot of sort of blockchain aspects that are quite similar to many other chains out there. But I think one of the key things for me with Algorand, we'll talk about in a bit more detail shortly, is around the involvement of the Digital Pound Foundation that I attend quite a bit. They're very relevant in these kind of areas, but also have definitely branched out into some other critical industry and sectors over the last couple of years. We'll go into a bit more of a quick deep dive on those, but also what's coming in December, which I think will excite a lot of Algorand holders, or if you're new to Algorand, it's something that you're interested in also. There's some big announcement just in the last couple of days. It's been rumored for a while, but it appears that they have announced that. So we'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a second. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to smash that subscribe button if you have not done so already. Welcome back if you have been with us for some time. Let's go straight into the topic of Algorand. So currently, the price point hitting the 30-cent rough kind of mark in the last few days. In fact, the last month, it's actually had some good progression, coming down from these low points of around 10 cents and taking itself up to 30 cents. So that's all in the space of a month, which I think is really positive if you're a holder. If you're looking to go into Algorand for the first time, we'll do a bit of a chart analysis in a moment's time. We can look at a bit of detail of where we are with everything, where's maybe some potential good entry points. But overall, we're still largely down from the all-time sort of spectrums here. 90% down, in fact, in total. I mean, to be fair, on here it's kind of mentioned launch prices, but just a quick focal point around this sort of 2021 region, if you remember that bull market, that was hitting around just over $2. So we've got plenty of room to grow this token price in the future. More on that shortly, but it's really just emphasizing, the last month has seen some good progression. It's probably on a lot of people's radars if it hasn't been before, more so than it has in the past. So as I mentioned earlier, Algorand now boasts a good number of different projects, good number of allocations to various different sectors and industries. I'll focus on one or two of those briefly in this video. I'm particularly interested in Lofty, which is related to real estate, or the tokenization of real estate. We've talked about this many times with other chains and other projects. One in particular is Proppy. Again, fantastic group of people there, building a great philosophy in the blockchain space, the Web3 space, and the tokenization of real estate, which is the multi-trillion-dollar market globally. And the fact that we can pretty much sit in our chairs or sofas or walk around investing in real estate in the form of Web3 or crypto assets is quite crazy, really, if you think about it, because you think how hard it is, or has been in the past, to go to banks, get out deposits, put money down on rentals, do shared ownerships, or what do they call them, where you share properties, a syndicate, that's it. You can do that with boats and things, right? So it's really interesting. Another project, like Hedera, where we talked about diamonds, I think that's another huge market, multitude of billions and if not trillions there as well. I think that's a mental market, diamonds. But real estate is a really big one. The fact that Algorand is now not necessarily partnering, but also powering a lot of these partners to do that. I won't talk too much about LabTrace. I think this is still very much something in its infancy, but very, very important in terms of medical data, the transparency of data as well, and our ability to access medical data as well, because not all the time it's very easy to even find out your own medical history properly, and what is done with that information, and are there things missing that are not being picked up by the sort of general medical institutions. So AI is a really big part of that, but we won't talk about that much. Probably do a dedicated video to around that, because we've got a few other projects that we cover, or indeed I hold or don't even hold, in the medical sphere of the crypto utilization also. And things like, well, this is about whole chain. This is about the traceability of end to end. So it goes literally through logistical aspects of supply chain, from production to end user. We've talked a lot about that sort of thing with the likes of VeChain. So you can see my pattern here is that there's a lot of other companies doing similar things. Someone put in a comment in the video we did earlier with Energy Web saying, there's so many different assets out there and so many do similar things. Is one going to be a winner, or are they all going to be winners? And it's not about the question of winning. I think it's more about the mentality of not doing too many things, like the jack of all trades as it is and master of none, as the saying goes. It's more actually that if you think about how the web started, and there was thousands upon thousands of companies, thousands of ISPs, data bridges, etc., and then that got whistled down as you fast forward, well, arguably 30 years now, probably 25, 30 years properly. And you've got like a handful of really well-known ones. You've still got some smaller ones that coordinate in their own way. And it's the same with Web3. I've mentioned in previous videos, when I first got into crypto, there was about 8,000 crypto, and then 12,000 by around 2021, something like this. Now, if you go on CoinMarketCap, was it? I think it's like 2.4 million plus crypto assets. That's ridiculous. 762 exchanges. How many of these do we need? It's a similar principle. How many banks do we need? So eventually, I think these numbers will come down. But the point being here is that Algorand, I believe, will be one of the top ones. I mean, of course, yes, by market cap, it is still placed, relatively nicely in the sphere of the listings within CoinMarketCap. Of course, I think it's currently sat at number 53. It's not too bad. It's in the top 100. I don't pay too much attention massively to the market caps unless you're looking at how much could something move. It's more interested really in the utility aspect and where it's going with that side of things. But yeah, we'll talk about a bit more lofty in a second. And Folks Finance is also an interesting one, which we'll probably do a separate video on as well. But it's definitely one that's up there. It boasts quantum secure. Well, people asked me about that quite recently, actually. That's very much around the ability of it being essentially as secure as possible. So quantum computing in itself is obviously very powerful. So when you're talking about hackers in general, most of them aren't really just using the old school coding and individual things, this, that, and the other. They're also looking at things like these supercomputers being able to calculate mathematically faster and faster, quicker than ever before. And that became a problem more so a few years back, really. But now it's kind of something where protocols have been put in place for that to stop these quantum computers from being able to hack into the likes of major chains like Algorand, for example, at those levels. So it's a really strong point to mention. Not too many chains like fully focus on that. I think it is important, and clearly for Algorand, when they're working so heavily with the government at the moment, with things like Digital Pound Foundation for the CBDC aspects, it's a very important narrative to be mentioning for sure. So that in mind, let's go to the next topic with Algorand. I think this is quite exciting in itself. Staking rewards. I love staking. Algorand, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure I've staked Algorand before on some exchanges, but obviously probably within their own pools. But it's the first time, I believe, that Algorand are launching their ability for a direct staking reward platform and mechanism. So this is really cool to see this involvement. Apparently, to do solo staking in a minimum of 30,000 Algorand, you can apparently use smaller amounts in your balances of Algorand. It just means you have to go through liquid staking or staking pool applications available across the ecosystem, which I'm pretty sure is what they mean by where I mentioned a minute ago. I'm sure I've staked them in some exchange pools before. But yes, you can still activate through other areas. But at the moment, I don't think there's a huge amount mentioned here in regards to what the percentage returns and things like that. It does mention here about, I believe this is about nodes. So if you're wanting to get involved in that node aspect or mining, etc., you can do so. So some technical information there if you want to get involved in that side of things. And then, of course, as it says here, with liquid staking and the staking pools in general, you can go about your business that way also. So that's a bit of an exciting thing, because I think in some ways that could be part of the drive over recent times, certainly last month, not just because of the market trends going upwards, but also with the factor of this on top, where people are gathering the coins or trying to get involved in the node application. I think that's quite a popular thing for people to get involved with. I haven't really done so much myself in the past. I did it with BlockDAG for a bit. I need to check that out, actually. I haven't checked that account for some time. But in relation to Algorand, I think it's quite a powerful tool. On top of that, I do think we will probably see further acceleration as it gets nearer to that staking point and more news comes out about it as well. So you'll have the market trend. You also have the excitement in general of the Algorand as a project and as a technology, and from an investor's perspective, but you also probably have an injection of people buying the Algorand, which might keep the price a bit more stable and a bit higher up, as well as that that staking mechanism locks in the tokens for longer periods of time. So there's lots of cool variables there that could work in our advantage as an investor, and certainly something to think about when we look at the charts shortly in the future as well. The other quick things I just wanted to mention. So we talked about Lofty. So it's mentioning here, this is quite interesting. So Lofty itself, the actual project, which are these guys here, really awesome. That it's mentioned here. This is as of June, this news, so it's probably a bit bigger than it is now than it was back then. Tokenized 148 properties over 11 US states. Highest valued property valuation was $2.2 million, lowest $50. Average number of buyers per home 231, over 7,000 active users monthly, and has generated over $2 million worth of rental income for its users to date. Now, as I said, there's a number of projects that are involved in this kind of thing. I think what's good about this is you get a bit of an extra trust mechanism when you know the likes of Algorand are powering the aspect of tokenization with this kind of project and company. And I think it's a great way for anyone and everyone to get involved. If you think about it, where people had so many barriers of investing in general for the last, say, 20, 30 years, unless you had good brokers in banking or you're willing to go and pay for that service, let's say from London or whatever, more and more apps have opened up, not just from the crypto space. You've got investors apps like Trading 212, which I've got, things like that. You've got Pension Bee to accumulate all your pensions together and work out what you want to do with the money rather than it being dictated to you. And now real estate and many other markets are going to open up because of the power of blockchain and that ability to tokenize everything, fractionalize everything. So it doesn't mean, you can go and buy a whole one, but you can also buy a partial element of it and you're sharing that profit of the rent. So when someone's paying that 1,000, 2,000 or however much it is a month and you're earning a certain percentage of that, it's an extra passive income potentially. I don't know the ins and outs of Lofty from a UK's perspective, if you can invest or not, because it is abroad, and then there's obviously like US tax accumulations to think about and things like that, but the principle is there, and there's definitely many other projects like this. There's Estate X, I've mentioned Property, which we cover on the channel quite a lot. We're trying to get Estate X on a video soon. Been trying a while, keep going. But yeah, it's definitely something of great interest. Me personally, I've always wanted to really invest in property. I don't have capital at this moment in time to just go and buy things for subletting and things like that. I also don't want to be too greedy. So I think this is actually quite a nice balance of getting something that is hopefully not too much management yourself, and being able to do that. So definitely worth a look into. As I said, do extra research on it yourselves and just literally putting the point out there that these kind of things are, we almost have the ability to do things like this now, which is quite amazing, to be honest. So it even shows you all the yields, returns, potential returns that you can get on that as well. So that's just one element of Algorand that I just wanted to pull out today as a topical point. And also the staking, of course, I think that's a really good pick-up point for the next few days and weeks to come. So that loops nicely into the chart, guys. Try and do a wrap-up of this relatively quickly. So as I mentioned earlier, the price currently, let me just first of all put it on Algorand. It would be really helpful. There we go, 30 cents. That makes more sense. So the last Algorand video must have been around this sort of time, October 2023, maybe a bit later. Who knows? I'll have to look back. It must have been a while ago. So I've left all of that as it is. I'm just going to put a new fib level in for most recent times. I'm going to take the current high point here. I'm going to take the one previous because actually, ironically, it's hit that old period just recently. I'm going to take this low point down here. So we've got our structure for the most recent point in time, but I'm also going to do my best to try and pull out this one. So this is around about 0.8. I think we can all agree on that. Just put it across slightly, around about there. So what we've got here now, if I zoom in, 2 levels of interest. So first and foremost, with this existing criteria of movement, we can start to anticipate potential next points of interest, whether that be to sell or maybe potential entry points also. So currently we're stabilizing around this sort of 28 cent mark. If you look at this previous chart here, which one's that relating to? Is it this one? That was on stuck on 14. Just pull that across as well. Put it back down to around 14-ish. So we got 2 validation points now, guys. So from this mid level, we can see the stabilization between the 28 and the 29/30 cent mark, which is really good to see. We got 2 confirmations there. We probably got a third one in the longer term ones as well, just sitting above this big blue one here at the same point. So what we can conclude from this is if you're new to Algorand or you're interested in it, whether it be based off the limited knowledge I've given you in this video, or you've always had an interest in Algorand, or you're interested in the staking, you honestly want to try and get the best price point. So we've got to think about all these variables going on at the same time, simultaneous. Like I mentioned, there could be a drive up because of that staking. So we've got to be wary of that. But equally, the market trend in itself that we always see people taking profits, that always has a bounce off effect up and down within certainly with Algorand, it can fluctuate around about 10 cents in that period of time, as it has done here. And that can happen several times over a few days period, if not 1 or 2 weeks. If we can get that stabilization, I think we could potentially get a next push up. And that will see us get to that sort of 33, 34 cent confirmation before the next big push up, which would be all the way up here at 46, 47. Now, if you were buying where I was buying, so by the way, my average buying cost of Algorand apparently is 13 cents, apparently, and 111% up on the account, which is great. I was late to the party with Algorand, I will be honest with you. I can't remember when exactly I started, but it was in some of these lower regions. I was actually buying at slightly higher prices than 13 originally, and obviously when it came back down to this sort of 9-10 cents, I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity to get into something that I wanted to for ages, because I left this alone, because that would have been absolute chaos if I got involved in that, because it's going all over the place. But now it's at these lower regions, it becomes a lot more exciting and a lot more gain potential. So with that in mind, the reason I'm mentioning that is because if I was new, if I didn't have any Algorand at all, I'd be looking at this whole structure of this last month and saying, well, there's a bit of a risk factor here. We can identify that with the RSIs on the bottom left here as well to suggest 74 and 72 on the 14 and 28 day respective relative strength index. This means really from 0 to 100, we're at the sort of third quarter leading up to the 100 mark, which means that there's a limited amount of gain still left there. It still could push up, and that could, by the way, be what takes it up to the 47, 50 cent mark. Absolutely, could be. But if we look at the macro levels, of course, the next sort of wavelengths to look at, 35 cents, 38, and it very much matches up really with this longer term one that we did ages and ages ago at 45. So there's some 2 or 3 brackets we need to push through to do that. If you look at the data historically this last month, it's actually been doing that in correct, proper steps, which is really fascinating when you look at it in this way. Even if you don't look at the one I've just drawn in, you look at the old one, it's exactly pretty much in exact alignment. So if we get our repeated pattern, the argument would be that we then next stabilize ourselves at 33 cents. The big push up to 45 it's a bit mismatched, which is why I think that we'll probably see something maybe in the middle of that, which is at the 37, 38 mark first, at least. So that buying opportunity, really, in my opinion, this is not financial advice at all or anything like that. It's what I would personally be looking at is, well, can we stretch back down to this market here? So when we do a retest of this area, get the stabilization confirmation before we bounce back up again. That's the question mark. So personally, at the moment, because I was buying at the 13 cents, I'm not really going to be buying anymore at this moment in time. People may argue with me and say, well, hang on a minute, if you're so adamant that we're going to hit the previous all-time highs and probably beyond that. This, by the way, is where I look at that 25.08.23. I wrote that to say that that's where I think the price will be in this next bull run of 2025. So we'll see. If it gets to $4.08, I'll be a happy person. So at 30 cents, if you're even comparing it to the 2.8 or $3, what's that? I think it's around, mathematically, I don't know, 300%. May have got that completely wrong. Either way, it's still a good pinpoint. In fact, I've got a marker here. Why don't I just use this? Very lazy of me. So let's just say to that previous all-time high to where we are currently, which is there, 808, I was miles off, 880% increase there. If we go to that new all-time high at $4 from the current price point of 30, 1,480% increase. So there's an argument to say, well, actually 30 cents could still be seen as, in inverted commas, cheap. Don't know. But if I can get them lower, absolutely fantastic. So might actually potentially myself put some buy orders in at that 24 or 22 just in case we capture back down. But we're on an upward trend at the moment. So it might be a while before we see this marker, but I'm going to put one in regardless because that would be a great touch point. But that acceleration upwards could be very exciting for people. I'm not going to myself probably sell at 45 or whatever cents. I'm more interested in when we get nearer the dollar at least again, as a minimum. But some people may be doing this on day trading and more regularly trading, so that could be a lot of excitement for people in this bracket of area. So when we hit those markers, it will be very evident what people are doing and not doing. But I am very interested in to see how this staking aspect may push it up a bit further. So let's keep an eye on it. I'm going to wrap this video up, guys, because I'm trying to squeeze in a couple more, and I'm trying to do more each day as well in the spare time that I have. Any questions on Algorand, drop them in the comments below. Anything else you want to talk about Algorand or just general comments, please shove them in. Always interested to hear all aspects. If you think Algorand is nonsense, tell me about it. Love to hear all kinds of views and thoughts about it. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next Algorand video. Bye-bye.